folks that process, and they're the external folks that process feelings. And oftentimes when children are having a hard time, they verbalize in ways without their words. They don't have the capability of raising their hand and telling their teacher, "Hi, teacher, I have a hard time decoding this word. Can you help me figure this out?" They disengage in different ways. So in my case, my son was the internal guy. He was bedwetting. He was telling me he had a headache, had stomach aches. He definitely did not feel like he was adequate and used lots of self-deprecating language, like he felt dumb and stupid. I had another kid that was telling me he had a small brain. And then we have the kids who have their emotional outbursts, like rather, they get angry, and rightfully so. They're angry. They cannot do the one thing that they see everyone else do. So these are codes that I often tell people, adults, that we should be looking for. But what does the brain do? So in this, I like to show the slide because I'm also a brain geek. The brain has different regions that process language. And when all of these things are working together seamlessly, it helps us decode and develop the language skills that we need. When we have different parts of the brain that are not talking to each other, that is where the handicaps come into play. So, for instance, when we're talking about the word bird, there is a part of our brain who actually hears the word and processes the word. There is another part of the brain that actually is able to decode how to say the word bird. There's another part of the brain that actually visualizes what the thing is that we're talking about. And there's another part of the brain that literally just stores it. It becomes the memory bank. So when you're able to have that recall, that is the skill that makes you a proficient reader. It is not learning to memorize or keep it there temporarily. And what have we been doing the last several decades is we've been, unfortunately, teaching kids how to be really good memorizers and guessers. These are been some of the skills that we've been teaching kids, and my favorite villain of this page is Skippy Frog over here. We've been telling kids to skip the tricky word, read to the end, go back and try again. So if you're teaching kids in K-2 to look at pictures, look at word patterns, find words that you think are similar and just skip around the page, it becomes massively difficult in third grade and beyond when pictures disappear, word patterns don't exist, and all you're left with is actual words. The skills that we were doing before were really great in the language comprehension, the blue side of the rope. This is the reading rope. These are the skills that you need to become proficient readers. So balanced literacy really helps students with their vocabulary and their verbal reasoning. But where it really did not serve students well was in the word recognition piece of the rope. That is the decoding and the phonetic awareness that we need to be able to decipher if the word weather, depending on the spelling, meant two different things. You need to be able to have both decoding and language comprehension skills to become a functioning person with language. If you are lacking in any of these pieces, you are functioning as an illiterate in a very literate space. And that is often a very deep and ugly secret that many adults carry because they are deeply embarrassed that they can't read. So this is where our work comes in. Literacy Academy Collective is really focused on supporting students who are on the bottom of the ladder. There's a subset of folks, and some folks may be on this call who are just that way, who just kind of learn how to read organically. But the vast, over 60% of the population really benefits from direct and explicit instruction that can be, so they can be proficient readers. The approach that we've used, a lot of the words have been used interchangeably, but just so we have a deeper understanding is there is something called the science of reading that I know folks may have heard of, and that is the body of research that has happened over the last 50 years that really discusses how the brain processes language and how it activates when we're learning how to read. And what came out of the studies was those different approaches. And, it goes by structured literacy. I mentioned Orton Gillingham. There's writing methods that have come out of this as well. Here's a comparison of what we were doing before, called balanced literacy, and what we're striving to get to with the science of reading. But an example of what has been done before was there was independent reading blocks where students can grab a book and go to a cozy corner and read. In my case, my children could not read, so they often just looked at pictures and then used it as time to play. When we're looking at like a school like ours, we don't use independent reading time. We actually use that as time to really support those students and give them the skills so they can learn how to access those books so they can read. Every minute of the day is massively precious, and we don't want to give it to students who are struggling to do the very same thing that we are trying to teach them. So how we got here, we made history 2 years ago when we opened the nation's first in-district standalone public school in the country to support students who have dyslexia and other language-based learning disabilities in the South Bronx. We opened with 2nd and 3rd grade. Currently, they have 4th grade. Next year, they'll have 5th, and they'll grow up to 8th. But what makes our literacy schools different is that it is small and is very intentional. So there are 18 kids per classroom in an ICT setting. So there's 2 adults per classroom. Our model is funded differently as well. We have 1 speech and language pathologist per grade. We also have 1 occupational therapist per grade. And they not only see the students that need those supports, but when possible, we actually have them push into the classroom. So then that way they're an additional adult supporting the teacher and supporting all students in the classroom with that instruction. Our model is also intentional in our tier 1 approach. So we have a religious 90-minute reading and writing block. And this is where all the adults in the building come into play. We assess every student and we put them in similar groupings of small groups. So at SBLA, she has currently 11 reading groups happening for 90 minutes. And there is an adult with every small group, could be anywhere from 4 to 6 kids, learning those skills. When a child masters the skills of that one group, they then move on to the next group. So it's all intentional, it's all part of a system, and as they develop their skills, they are learning it to mastery and they're moving on. We also have a writing block, so it's 45 minutes of reading, 45 minutes of writing, where we're teaching direct and explicit ways to write really good sentences, not sentences that we are freestyling and writing just gibberish. It is actually really thoughtful sentences, because as we know, how you write is your way of communicating to the world. So we want our Literacy Academy students to be able to have those skills when they leave us. We have an approach as well for math, because the math curriculum has proven to be slightly difficult for our kids. So we also have a skills block to support them. And social, emotional, and executive functioning go hand in hand in our model. A lot of our students have sort of social, ADHD. So we want to be able to give them the skills that they need. And why I'm here. We are going to open another school. We are going to open Central Brooklyn Literacy Academy. It's up for a vote tomorrow with the intentionality of doing the same. It is going to be in school district 17, but we will have a preference for district 16, 23, and 32 as well. And it'll be a similar model going from grades 2 to 8. We are currently enrolling students. So it is in the My Schools portal. We are doing virtual office hours. So if families are interested, they can pop in. We just had one literally just now. So people can pop in and ask questions. And then here is my info, but I will take off screen because I want to make sure I am within my minutes. I think I just finished.
You did beautiful, Naomi. Perfect timing.
Perfect.
One, I think I will echo what everyone has said. Your mission and what you guys have been doing has been phenomenal, and just your wealth of knowledge around language-based learning disabilities is phenomenal. You just helped debunk a lot of stuff in that little bit of time that you had. I do want to open up the floor for any questions that anyone have, so that we can get those while we have you here with us. Does anyone have any questions for Naomi?
I just want to. My name is Eric Ost. I'm a board member here as well. And Naomi, I learned so much in your presentation, and I really appreciate it. And excited that you guys are bringing a school into the community board district zone. So welcome. I'll say welcome. And yeah, right now, so I know that school applications have already gone in, like, people have applied to school. So um, how people who have already applied for their kids to go to a school, can they still go into the portal and change it, or should they contact you directly? What's your suggestion?
So we are taking applications until May 16th. I have a sneaky suspicion that they might extend it. So we are continuing to take applications. Ironically enough, the portal this year is seamless. So after this call, I'm going to reply to the email that got me onto this call, and I'm gonna send you our slide deck so you have it. I'll send you information on how, if people are interested, how they can apply, and I'll send you our one-sheeter that talks about our Literacy Academy schools approach. So you all have the information, but the vision is to serve the community, and we're intentional on the places that we are in. We want to be in communities that have been dismissed, underserved, and hard to reach. And we are willing to do the legwork to do that. We've been really successful in the South Bronx, and I know this will be only another asset to Brooklyn, and also just to be a partner. So again, like, if you all are working on something and you want to partner up and want to do a workshop or want me to table, my goal is that nothing to us without us. So I want to be a part of the community as well. And if you see that there's an asset that I have that you want me to bring along, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you. I see your hand, Carl. You want to jump in and ask your question?
Yes, I do. So, folks, good evening. So, Naomi, thank you very much for sharing that presentation and being open and vulnerable, with us as well too. And so, my question for you is, as you shared the literary journey that you and your kids had, like starting in the New York City public schools and then the school that you're in now, my question for you is, from your experience, was the challenge that the services that your kids were supposed to receive weren't trained in that specific thing, or was it more of a structural thing where there were people who were trained, but it didn't look like this, I guess, either, related services or the agencies that are providing the services weren't able to get those people to your kids, right? Like, where did you see some of those pain points, I guess, at a structural level as you were going through those journeys with your kids?
Yeah, now that I'm on the other side of this and I have been able to get my kid where he needed to be, fundamentally where this was about was the system had no idea how to get kids reading. And it has nothing to do with speech and language pathologists. It has nothing to do with OTs. It is literally the way we're teaching kids how to read in the classroom with the teachers. We have also delved into some policy work, because fundamentally what we discovered in this process is that teachers are graduating from higher ed institutions with a degree that says that they're a teacher, and they're not teaching teachers how to teach reading either. So while we're trying to point the finger along to someone, it's a vicious cycle that no one has been doing their due diligence. And fundamentally, what my kids needed was just a setting that taught them how to break down the letter sounds and how to blend them. And the approach that we were using before did not do that. It was sort of like a whimsical by osmosis approach of like looking at books and guessing that kids were supposed to read. And for kids like mine and many others, it actually created a hindrance, and it made them feel less than because they felt like they couldn't do something that we now know is actually not rooted in science and doesn't help anyone. So we're moving towards a system where we're looking at teaching children based through the science, through a scientific approach, how to process language and how to read, which is a long time coming. It's going to take a while because you got to retrain the workforce to do that. But at our Literacy Academy schools, we actually do that over the summer with all the teachers in our building. So all the teachers go through an extensive training that we do for 5 weeks at a summarizing site. So when they show up to our schools, they are off, they hit the ground running.
Got you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing that. And then that popped into my head another follow-up question because I have friends who are teachers. I myself have never taught within the New York City public school system, but know tons of people who have. And so when you bring up the literacy thing, whatever it makes me think of is, I remember hearing of like Pontus and Pinnell and so many other things, right? And so I'm just like, since you're talking about that, then I'm also thinking about like bigger scale, like just spitballing here. What are some of your ideas with it, like with textbooks and that whole industry, right? Because you mentioned the
Yeah.
certification and the graduation of people who decide to be teaching, but I guess like since you're saying you feel your journey has shown there's a structural issue with how literacy is taught itself, then how does that look within like the textbook side of things, right?
Yeah. So, one thing I would highly recommend everyone, if you're interested, you should definitely delve into a fabulous podcast by a journalist called Emily Hanford. It's called Sold a Story. She does a really amazing deep dive on how we got here through literacy over the last several decades. And Fontes and Pinnell is definitely one of the villains in the story, along with Lucy Calkins and her teacher college approach. Because what they did was reinforce this thing that students were reading, at levels. They were telling me that my kid, who had been held back twice and was in the 4th grade, was at a reading at a level P, which was 4th grade. But I knew he wasn't reading at a level P because this boy could not read a restaurant menu. So it wasn't until he got into his school that they finally told me, yeah, he's like reading at a 1st grade reading level. So we were using faulty mechanisms of screening to tell a story to families, to kids, and it just created a vicious cycle of feeling crazy and for the children to feel less than. The approach that we're doing now, at least, as a system, is New York City public school system is walking away from those approaches, and they've opted to use curricula that is based in the science. At our literacy school, we also are encouraging the use of decodables. So those are books that are leveled according to the letter sounds that they're learning. So if you learn the long A sound, you now have access to those books that use the long A sound. If you're learning the E sound, now you have access to those books, because what it does is that it gives books in hand to students who have learned a skill and then can practice it with the content that they have. When you give books to kids who have not been able to decode half the words on the page, it just festers a vicious cycle of feeling inadequate when we want them to feel academic success.
Thank you so
Naomi.
much for sharing that. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
I have a couple rapid fire questions for you. So just bear with
me.
Go
ahead. I got you. Go ahead.
All right, boom. Okay, first one is I see that both the academies, the one in the South Bronx and the one that's going to open up in Central Brooklyn, are going to serve grades 2 to 8. is there a reason around why it's not a K-8 approach?
Absolutely. It is hard to identify a student who is struggling to read in kindergarten and first grade because their brains are still developing and you need to still, quote unquote, give it time. Typically, by the end of first grade, if the child has not made progress, that is where you're able to identify a struggling reader.
Makes so much sense. Other question is, I'm currently a principal in elementary school, and I've been in elementary school for quite a while, and I've seen the shift away from like Fontes Pinnell and all those different assessments. So I'm curious, how are you guys assessing students' literacy progress at the Literacy Academy?
We are using two mechanisms. So one of them is the Acadians. So that is literally the tool that we use to qualify students for our school. And the intentionality of our school is that's barrier free. You do not need an IEP. You do not need a neuropsych. You just need to be a student who's struggling to read, and you can. And since the system is using Acadians citywide, that is a mechanism that we use. We also use a foundation skills based curricula called PAF. It's a horrible name. It's called Parenting Academic Failure, but they have within their own curricula, they have assessments as well. So they're not apples to apples, but at the very least, we're able to assess. That curricula only is supposed to be used from grades 1 to 3. So once our children matriculate out of PAF, they can then, seamlessly go into the elected curricula that the district is using. So those are the two skills that we actually use the two methods we use to track students and their progress.
Got it. And then I don't want to I have one more question, but I don't want to take away from anyone else. Eric, I saw your hands up. Did you have a question, or am I good to ask my final question?
I have one thing to add, but let's go with number 3 and do the trifecta.
All right. Beautiful. So I know that we're trying to do school district 17, but I saw that there was I think you mentioned a preference for 16, 23, and then was it 32? Did I hear that right?
Mm-hmm.
32. Yep. Great. What is the voting process look like? Because I know you're set out for 17 right now. You're taking applications, but if that doesn't go through, is that when you guys make a shift to any of those other districts?
No. So anyone within those districts will get preference in the
Got
lottery.
it.
So it's
Application.
a
Okay.
lottery process. Anyone can apply. We are, if someone is coming from 15, from 13, they can apply. The truth is, within the preference, encatchment, we will give preference to those 4 districts first.
Very selfishly, I appreciate that because I work in 23, and the literacy rate there is really dire. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. Listen, and we're here to serve. So
yes. All right, Eric, all you, and we're gonna wrap up.
All right, my last comment. Are you guys in touch with State Assembly member Robert Carroll, like his
yes.
office? Okay, great. That was and obviously he's passed, dyslexia legislation, and is a big advocate. So
yeah,
great.
Bobby, Joanne Simon, and countless others have been amazing champions in literacy. So it is our honor to be standing shoulder to shoulder with them, and also, quite frankly, their work is what set the ground for us to get here and elevate the work. So we're just excited to be in partnership, and everyone understands the mission here. So it's been massively helpful.
That's great. All right, I'm excited. Thank you so much for being here and presenting. Really nice to meet you.
Yeah, thank you.
Nina, was this a question for Naomi?
I was just going to say that maybe the next step would be to start running workshops for particularly your kindergarten, first and second grade teachers to implement the methods that you've been doing so that you have fewer children who need special services.
1000%, Nina, from your lips to God's ears. If we can get everyone on the same page, it will make our life and our work a lot more seamless. But yeah, we are, we're happy to continue to spread this. This is why we actually have beyond the 2 districts that we're serving with our schools, we have a partnership in District 1 where we're actually initially it started as an after-school program with a couple of schools and training their teachers. They have actually implemented it into their day school, some of the techniques that they've learned. So, you know, people are willing to learn, and we're excited to be able to partner. So, for sure.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Naomi. This was amazing. Overall, I think I can speak for the board when I say thank you for what you guys are doing at the Literacy. I ended up butchering these because I feel like I'm saying all of it together. But Literacy Academy Collective. But no, truly, it is amazing work, and I know that we all saw the nation's report card come out and the need for it. So we're happy, and we hope to continue partnering with you. I know you're going to send an email over, you said, to the district office, and we'll make sure we share that information out with our community as well.
Thank you so much, everyone here. Have a great night, and I'm excited to continue to build a partnership here. So thank you.
All right. Moving on to the rest of the agenda. Mello, are you on the call? I don't see you anymore. I just want to make sure before I move on that I'm not skipping over you. Mello, are you there? Okay. It looks like the second
next item.
Yep. It looks like our second speaker is not on the call, so we're going to actually move on to the third agenda item. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Eric.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Eric Ost. Police Officer Joseph, are you on the call, sir?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, how you doing tonight? There he is.
Good. How's everyone doing?
Good. Good to see you.
Okay, same here.
So we're excited you reached out, and we're talking about possible collaboration on some youth initiatives and other resources for the community. So welcome to the meeting, and the floor is yours, sir.
All right, thank you so much for having me join the meeting. I'm glad to be here. Good evening, everyone. I'm Officer Joseph, Community Affairs Officer over at the 70 Precinct. And pretty much we have been working with different groups, different organizations, pretty much for the whole community, the youth community, the older adults. And we've been finding that with the youth, we do have our youth officers, the YCOs. They mostly work with, they do like school dismissals, they engage the youth even when they get in trouble. They speak with them, speak with their parents. And so we want to find ways to keep them engaged, keep them out of trouble, and also have some activities for them that can help them progress and be active members in their communities. So we do have different organizations that we're working with. One is Family Enrichment Center. They're called Outtent, and they've been collaborating with us on different initiatives. We've done a juicing event where we had some young people learn how to make natural juices with fruits and vegetables, teaching them about healthy lifestyles. So that was a successful event. We also did a horseback riding event, which a lot of the young people, it was their first time riding a horse, going to a stable, went to Jamaica Bay Riding Academy. Thanks to this organization, they were able to help sponsor and make it happen. And so one of the things they reached out and said, if we know pretty much whatever the community want to do, so pretty much we put it out to the young people. They give some of their ideas, some suggestions of what they would like to do. On our end, we would be able to help facilitate, whether it's having some officers on hand and also connecting different parts of the community, depending on the event and depending on the activity. So we do have, we do work with some of the elected officials, we work with churches and different community members that do put out some suggestions. So we did open it up for the community board as well, being that at the youth conference, there were a lot of resources that definitely could be helpful to young people in the community. So we want to see how we can implement and how we can collaborate to pretty much continue to work together. Some of the things that have come up that I can kind of put on the floor, this is really going to be brainstorming. So it's nothing concrete. If you guys have something in mind that you guys want to work with, it's something that we can put together and collaboratively work on it with my partners, Detective Lizzie and Officer Jewett. It is 3 of us on the team. So some of the things that came up, I did reach out to so her name is Dina Simon Leroy. She is the Chief Human Resource Officer over at the Teachers Retirement System. And when I mentioned this to her about doing a workforce planning workshop, she did kind of give me an idea of what she can come and help us present and do this workshop. And I'll just kind of briefly go over it. It's supposed to be a half-day event, and the title is Workforce Planning Workshop, Preparing Youth for Success. The goals would be to provide students with tools and knowledge to explore career paths and sectors, empower students to craft resumes that highlight their strengths and experiences, educate students about trades and diverse industry sectors to broaden career opportunities, teach effective networking skills to build professional relationships and confidence. The agenda would be an icebreaker. It would be about 20 minutes. Engage the students to create a comfortable environment. Career match game, ask students to pair career titles with brief descriptions. Electrician, install and maintain wiring systems, share workshop goals, and outline agenda. Another part of it would be a discussion, which would be another 40 minutes. Introduction to career sectors, overview of industries, healthcare, IT, trade, finance, education, highlight growth opportunities and examples of successful career trajectories, discuss career paths requiring degrees versus certifications or trades. And it'll be an interactive activity where career sectors exploration stations will set up tables with resources, brochures, videos for different sectors, allowing students to browse and ask questions. And now breaking down to the next part of the workshop is going to be an hour-long resume building workshop. They'll teach students to create resumes that showcase their strengths and experiences, focus on formatting basics, contact information, education, skills, experiences, how to write impactful bullet points and accomplishments, tailoring resumes for specific opportunities. Then they'll go into another activity where it'll be hands-on resume creation, provide sample template, and help students begin and drafting their resumes. And then there'll be another discussion where we'll bring in different leaders, overview of trades, electrician, plumber, carpenter, and their importance in workforce, and explain certification programs, apprenticeships, and entry requirements. We'll invite a guest speaker in the professional trade or industry to share insights on their career journey. And then they'll go into networking. What is networking? Why is networking important? Basic professional communications, including email etiquette, and LinkedIn usage. Interactive activity, elevator pitch practice. Students to prepare a 30-second pitch, introducing themselves and career interests. Then present to peers and mentors. And then we close. So this was a draft of pretty much a proposal in which she could work with us on, and she also wanted to invite someone to introduce the use of AI to get people a little more comfortable with it and how it could be beneficial in the workforce. So this is to prepare the students into like while they're in school now. By the time they graduate, they can have an idea of preparing themselves for the future, for the workforce, whether they want to continue their education or if they want to go into a trade. So that's just one thing that would be on the table, which is workforce. The next thing would be Councilmember Rita Joseph is hosting a prom giveaway May 30th over at PS 245. And this is going to be for students that are graduating. People are already donating clothes, dresses, things that the students would need to attend prom. I asked what is needed. She mentioned that they would like to have a partnership with maybe like a barbershop to either cut hair for the boys, or they would have maybe like a certificate where they could take to the barbershop before the prom. They can go ahead and get a haircut. So that's the two things that that I'll put on the table that we can, brainstorm on, or if there's anything else that you guys would like to bring up, or you think that the young people would be interested in, we can, put it together and present it to organizations to see if they can help cover it, the sponsor, and we can go from there.
All right. So I have a question, and then
Yes.
open it up to other board members too, and just brainstorm, think about it. So are you guys the program? You said the YCOs. Could you?
Mhm.
I'm not familiar with that. What?
Okay. So the YCOs is youth coordination officers.
Mhm.
So their main function in the precinct is to focus totally on youth.
Okay.
Pretty much they're there for school dismissals. A lot of time if there's issues in a school with conflict and things like that, they would be there. For example, we have the Flatbush Northern Junction, where it's been a nightmare where the kids congregate. We're taking violence there. Kids meet up there to go fight, settle their differences. So the officers are there to just make sure they don't fight. But in case they do, they have to bring them back. They would make an arrest if they have to. But if they don't have to and they can kind of like stop it before it happens, that would be the main goal, to just make sure the kids are safe. So these officers are dedicated to the youth. So they're the ones that we would partner with when it comes to hosting an event, along with community affairs as well.
Okay. And you guys, when these events that you did, where you did the horseback riding, like who were the kids that you organized that for? Like program or?
So that's a good question. So pretty much with that, we did speak with FDC, Flatbush Development Corp,
Mhm.
where so this organization, they pretty much focus on the area here, which is in this community board 14. So whether the kids live here, they go to school here, and it's not just for kids, it's within the community. We just focus a lot more on kids because we see that a lot of the ages between, I want to say, 14 to about 17, they're the ones that are getting in trouble the most, whether it's stealing cars or whether it's gang activity, sometimes it's drugs, and things like that. So if we can help these young people before they get into that, it'll be a success. And sometimes they do get in trouble and they get on the right path, so they get the right direction, and they can kind of like change course. So with this group with the horseback riding, it was FDC. The juicing event we did, it was the Youth Explorers.
Okay.
So there's explorers that's part of the precinct, and we did that event with them.
So how many kids are in the Youth Explorers program?
So every precinct has a different number. For within our precinct, we have about 10 to 15 young people. We did partner with other precincts, so other youth officers, they brought their explorers to participate in this event, in which we had about 30 kids.
All right, cool. And the FDC, do you know what program they tap for that? Because FDC, I know, is at 217. They do like after
Yes.
school stuff.
It's their after school program. These were for the 5th graders that were graduating. So
Oh,
as a treat for them, they came horseback riding.
oh wow, that's really cool. So the
Yeah.
5th graders at what school?
It was on East 22nd in Glenwood. What school is that?
Oh, I know the school. It's right by Bedford, yeah?
Yes, that one. Yep.
Oh wow, so the 5th graders got that, so that they organized the 5th graders to do the trip, and you
Yeah,
guys.
so we've done it in the past. So we have a good relationship with the Riding Academy, because the precinct did get some funding from one of the local electeds, and so with that funding, it's the anti-violence initiative, in which they provide these resources where we allocate it to different events. So within that budget, we would take different groups horseback riding, and the young people love it, so that's why we keep going back. So they have a good time learning about the horses, riding the horses,
Yeah,
sometimes feeding the horses.
that sounds great. And so, and the last question, just to like understand, it was the YCOs that coordinated and facilitated this, that connected the rioting organization to FDC and said, "Hey, let's get these kids." Like they were the point.
So pretty much we did it. Myself, I contacted Robin Redmond.
Oh, it was you.
Yeah,
It was you and Robin.
before,
Let's get
So
personal here.
before I got into community affairs, I used to be a NCO, a neighborhood
Okay.
coordination officer, and Robin was one of the community partners. And so we do have a good relationship. So when it came to looking for young people, we tap into the community, we tap into the resources. So which is why when I saw the youth conference, I said, you know what, this would definitely be a good opportunity to collaborate because we can get a lot of young people, out to engage in different activities.
Now it sounds. I'm like, well, Officer Joseph talked to Robin. Obviously, that's how these things happen.
Yeah.
So, I guess one thing I'll say, and then I'll open it up, is that we were talking about how at the office, linking what you guys are doing to the youth conference. Maybe there's another way to even tie into expanding some kind of workshops. That's something we always kick around prior to the youth conference, like adding some dimension. Youth conference,
Yes.
we've done these. Kids really like um, what's called the interviews, informational interviews.
Interviews, yes.
But we often talk about. I mean, the last 3 years we've been involved. Well, maybe we should do something additional and have different kind of giveaways. So it feels like there could be some partnerships for next one. On our agenda item today is like a recap
Yes.
thinking about the youth conference. So adding this to that, maybe partnership like Zoom, some kind of presentation or more
Okay.
for next year's conference for sure. But
Okay.
I'll open it up. Or if you have other ideas about how you thought, if you're here asking like how, are there other people who know organizations or have ideas for what you guys do? You're like looking for ideas on what you guys could do, and kind of also asking like, what is the kind of support you're looking for from us today? Like, you're looking to do something with CB14 or looking for ideas from us, from people here in the community on like what other things you could do.
Yeah, it's more so looking for partnership. Just like we tapped into FDC to get some young people. I figured with this community here, with this committee here, if there's different ideas that we put together, let's say we collaborate, the precinct and the community board, we can do like a massive outreach within the community. If there's anything that we're not thinking about and that you're thinking about, any resources that we may have access to, we just put it together to make it happen. So really, this is really like brainstorming. It was just like, who could we work with? How can we, collaborate? Because we're all within the same community and we all have the same goal. We want to make sure that public safety first, and then also we want to make sure that the young people are staying out of trouble, and want to make sure that they're learning, and they can look back and say, what, they work with a police officer. It's like they don't have to be afraid of us, like, to know that we're there for them. Sometimes a lot of the young people, they think that all police officers do is just arrest people, so they don't see the other side. They don't see the community aspect where we're actually doing different events, we're engaging. They see us in the street, they say hello, and maybe they might want to become a police officer. So these are some of the things that we want to just make sure like we're tapping into all of the resources to make sure we can kind of like help the young people, help the whole community, but mostly the young people.
I see Carl's got his hand up. So this, Carl, you want to jump in?
Yes, I do. So, Officer Joseph, thank you so much as always.
Yes.
My question for you is, like you're mentioning about the work that the youth community officers did, right, in conjunction with the partnership you established with Robert Redwood for that event, which is cool. And so my question for you is, NYPD with the youth programs, they have a bunch of the links of their youth programs. Like they have like the summer stuff, the law enforcement stuff,
Yes.
I forget, right? And so my question for you is, the youth community officers that you're mentioning, do they fall under any of those links that I would find if I go to like the NYPD youth programs, or they're not necessarily listed, I guess, under, you know, any of those links?
So with those links, it would probably fall under community affairs. So community affairs
Okay.
is like on the broader, it's like a broader bureau where they have the different programs. And a lot of times people don't know what resources community affairs offer. So this is why, like, during like community council meetings, we just kind of like explain, you know, some of the programs that community affairs offer. They just did like aviation program for students that are interested in flying. There's a drone program that they have. They have different sporting activities. They have blue chips where the kids are playing basketball, baseball, flag football. What else? So there's a bunch of activities that they have. They have what they call options. They just did a real estate program where young people can go in there and do a real estate course, take the test, get licensed, and become licensed real estate agents. They have hair cutting for kids that would want to become barbers, referees. So these are different programs that fall under community affairs, and it's accessible, you know, for the whole community.
Thank you so much for that. Much appreciated.
No problem. Yep.
Other board members, I was actually, in my mind, I was like, well, Sean is actually on vacation today. And I was like, man, when Officer Joseph is here, I just feel like I know she would be jumping in with ideas. And she also is aware, I was thinking about the resources that we have. So one thing that the at some point, Community Board 14 has had a youth board, like where there were kids that were recruited in and took part in the community board, but had their own kind of leadership activities. I don't know, Carl, maybe you were a part of it or led it at some point. I feel like Carl has the institutional memory here. But you know, at one point we had youth that we were working with specifically. You know, we're not like an FTC at the moment where we have, you know, kids that we're, you know, directly connected in with. And in fact, some of what we're going to be doing for our youth conference debrief is thinking about next year really strengthen our connections with the schools and different leaders within the schools, just so that we're, you know, there's turnover and some of our lists are older and the people we've reached out to have like switched jobs or moved on. So we need to do a double down on our outreach efforts and just find the, you know, reconnect with a lot of those people at the school. So we're in the process of doing in a similar thing, what you're doing, you know, engaging, you know, trying to find those leaders and engage the youth, certainly for the youth conference, but also to get them to apply to the community board and be on the board. You know, you can be 16 on the board. But I feel like what you guys are doing, you know, reaching out I know there's other middle schools, you know, I know PS 217 would love their fifth graders to go to the stables. So I'm just going to throw that out there. I mean, FTC works at 217 too. So, yeah. I mean, if this is working with that school and you already have a template, like, let's talk to Principal Bonilla.
Yeah, so and that's the idea, because with this organization that we're working with, they're willing to pretty much sponsor. So what we need to do is we need to pretty much bring it up to them to say, this is what the community want, this is how much it costs, and as long as we're able to get the young people, then, you know, we can put it together. Because if it's transportation, t-shirts, like whatever it is, we'll just present it to say, like, this is what the community wants to do, and we take it from there. So really, whatever ideas come to mind, it doesn't necessarily have to be horseback riding, although we can always go back. But whatever it is, and even if it's, let's say, a basketball game or, you know, a sporting activity, bowling, we can, you know, do that as well. And it doesn't have to be fifth graders. It could be high school students. It could be junior high school students. So we, as long as it's presented, we'll as long as we have the idea, we present it, we can take it from there.
Sarah, are you have a hand up?
Yeah, I mean, I had a question about what age demographic you're targeting because you talked about, I think one of the concerns is kids getting in fights after school, and that sounds like a slightly older demographic and maybe more of a high school age. And then the horseback riding sounds like it was for fifth graders. And so, is there a specific age group that you're trying to reach? And then I guess that would be my first question, and then yeah, that's really the question.
So good question. It wouldn't be just fifth graders. It's all kids, all young people. So depending on the event that we put together, we identify which group that we'd like to target. So we don't want to mix the elementary school students with the high school students. So if it's going to be an event for the older kids, it would just be, high school students, or if it's just eighth graders or just ninth graders. So depending on the activity and depending on the age group that we want to work with, that's pretty much like who we would target. But if we're talking about youth, so it'd just be anywhere from elementary up to high school.
Open it up to other board members. Comments, ideas.
And one more thing, it doesn't have to be now. As long as we have, yeah, I was gonna say it doesn't have to be now. As long as, I mean, we do have a lot of communication, and you guys have our email as well. So if something's not coming to you now, and it comes at a later time, we can always start an email thread where we're jotting down ideas, and then we could do plan that way as well. So it doesn't have to be, tonight.
I saw, that's great. Nina, I saw your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know in the past, a number of the police departments brought young people to the Sebago Canoe Club to do kayaking, and as far as I know, they stopped having any of the youth programs, unfortunately. However, I believe that there are some activities that, or you can arrange them through Floyd Bennett Field. I just wondered if you had thought about doing any of those kinds of things, getting kids out on the water.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, we can definitely present it, and as long as the parents consent, um, we can go from there. Because I know at Floyd Bennett also they have like an ice skating rink we could do. Golf is something that we're working on for June. Actually, June. The date is
Sounds like,
June. Say
yeah,
again.
so when they take the kids out, and I've helped with some kayaking out of Floyd Bennett Field, they have um, they have the kayaks, and they have volunteers who are trained who will go out. So it's not like you're just launching 10 kids out into the
Yeah,
water.
yeah, I got you.
It's very structured, and they have, and everybody has to wear PFD and so forth. So they keep it very safe, and they make sure that there is enough trained kayakers there to provide appropriate supervision, because a lot of times we know that a lot of times the adults who come along with the kids aren't experienced in kayaking either. So we want to help everyone have a really good time.
Okay, so is that one thing that we would want to kind of try that? Would that be like a starting point to see if we can get that going? Kayaking.
You know, hang on a minute. I'm going to see if I can, if you want to bear with me, I might have this information. Yes, let's see. It's the National Park Rangers at Floyd Bennett Field.
Nina, maybe you want to shoot an email to the office with that information and we can coordinate from there.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And what age group are you thinking for this?
I don't honestly, I don't know if they have like a minimum age. I know that there have been some programs where they'll take fairly young kids and put them in on say a kayak that can have more than one person on it.
Okay.
I don't know what they're set up for. I'm going to guess the minimum age may be somewhere around 10 or 12.
Okay.
But I'll try to see if I can get more information on that.
Okay. That's a
Okay.
good starting point. Yep.
Okay,
Thank you.
sure.
Also think, at our next board meeting, Officer Joseph, we will obviously talk about you guys looking for collaboration, and sign up to do one of the presentation, the speaking, right, when we have the full board, and you can
Okay.
you can jump up at the end, in the later speaker spots, and just make a pitch as well to the larger board. We'll say, there's only a certain number of people here, but obviously there's more people at the community board, and kind of put it out there, and then people can chat with you afterwards, and we can brainstorm between now and then and after then as well.
Okay. Sounds great.
Like you said, here's a starting point today, and now we know you guys are interested in doing this, and are looking to do these things around the district. So certainly I'll keep my eyes and ears open, but also talk to you more about it when we see you in person, and
Yes.
continue a conversation.
Absolutely.
So
Thank you so much. Yep.
so that might be a good place. Thank you so much for coming and reaching out, and also for doing these great things with the young people. It's nice that you guys are doing that, and it's important. So it's
Definitely. Thank you.
clearly, I know if you're behind it and you're doing it, I feel like kids are going to be on board.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Yep. And anything that we have going on, we'll also pass it along as well, just in case within the networks in terms of getting young people out. So that can help with outreach efforts as well. So that's one of the things that we're looking to kind of like strengthen whenever we do an event. We want to have we just don't want to keep taking the same kids. Like, we want to give different kids an opportunity to participate. So we'll definitely share the information.
That's great. Yeah, and keep sending information to CB14.
Okay.
They're doing things, and they can pass it along to board members. And if there's things that you guys are doing in the community, it can be posted. But yeah, and I mean, even FTC talk. Your conversation with Robin with that one school. I'm saying, man, I know that
17.
217 would love to be riding. They don't even need transportation. You got horses, so I mean, it's all taken care of.
Okay.
Anyway, I mean, that sounds like I don't think it's a bad idea to replicate. That
Yeah. Okay.
sounds really fun. So
Got it.
so all right. If any other comments from board members? Great. Well, thank you so much. You're welcome to stay. We're going to talk about the youth conference, or if you need to sign out, we appreciate you coming, and
Sounds good.
I know we'll see you at the next meeting. So
For sure. Thank you so much. All right. Everyone have a good evening.
all right, take care.
All right.
All right. So our final agenda item, or before any new business, we have it, is to reflect on the youth conference and this year, and talk about some glows and some grows and things we're thinking about for next year. I'll just say off the bat, I felt like one of the highlights of the youth conference is the community coming together in the same way that they are on like these meetings, like with the interest of helping young people, with the care of educators, people who care about the community, people who care about developing kids' career opportunities and skills, and making them feel connected. So I always feel like one of the great things of the youth conference when I'm there is all the organizations and the networking that goes on between. These are all people in our district that are doing things to work with youth. And while we say it's the youth conference, in many ways, I would often feel like it's a youth services networking event, where all these organizations are coming together and leaders in our community, the representatives, our local reps, and volunteers from the community board, parents who show up. Like, there's deep conversations that go on between all those people, and connections are always made, and there's always things that come out of it. And that was definitely true for me even this year as well. Just meeting new organizations, people, representatives, and thinking about just ways to share opportunities to other community members and make connections. So it continues to be incredibly valuable at that level, in addition to being, opportunities for all the young people. So I felt like that was still strong. The community is strong, coming together around that, and so that was obviously a strength. I think we can open it up to just, if people want to riff on what they thought went well or what we needed to work on, and we'll move, as the night has gone on here, we'll move quickly into like, what are some ideas to improve for next year. And yeah, so I think I'll open it and then I'll jump in as well. Ornella, if you want to start, or Carl, or another board member, go ahead. We'll look for hands.
I
Nina,
saw quite a
go
few
ahead.
hands pop up right away.
I saw Carl go up. And Nina, is your hand up new hand, or is it from last time? Okay, all right. Carl, Carissa, go ahead.
Sure, awesome. And so first thing, yes, like I agree with you. It is always great to see all the people show up, right? Just because there's a lot of organizations that do work and that care, and so we have that idea, but it's still always good to see them physically present in the room. Um, there's definitely two things that I think definitely can improve. So one of them, the two of you had alluded to earlier in terms of like keeping our contacts up to date and then outreach, because I think definitely one of the contributors, one of the challenges was reaching out to people and it's like, oh yeah, so and so doesn't work here anymore. Like this is this person, right? So there's that challenge, and then there is another thing that I can do better too. And what I mean by that is basically the networking and the working the room, right? Because for this past one, I was there in the beginning, and then I went to the to the mock interviews, and the mock interviews were great and I had a great time. But there's also something that I can do better that I'll definitely make sure I do better for next year, which is that I'll still participate in the mock interviews because those are great. But I think one of my responsibilities as chairperson is to make sure that, hey, like, as organizations come in, like, yeah, they see, they meet the welcome table and then they get set up. But it's also one of those things that's important where when there is downtime where there aren't that many kids there, it's definitely important for me as a chair to be walking around each table and talking to people, not only because that's important and because I care, but it also lets them know, hey, like, I'm one of the many people who value what you do. And so if there are no students at your table, whether you feel a certain way or not, like, we're still appreciative of you being here and we value the work that you do for the community at large, right? And so that's something that I can definitely do better, and I'll definitely do that for next year. And then I agree with what the two of you said before about like some things that we can look at for like outreach and keeping stuff up to date.
Thank you for that, Carl. Carissa, go ahead.
Hey guys, I know I was kind of like incognito before this, so good night. Youth conference was great. This was my first year. I got to actually experience it, so I was coming from more of a observing standpoint, just to see like, okay, how does this work? What can we do? And the first thing that I noticed is that it's like a youth job fair, basically. And then when you look up the word conference, it's like you go to hear somebody speak. So I think we need more clarity on what it actually is. Is it a place where people can come, young people come and seek jobs and hear somebody speak? Or is it just a job seeking opportunity? Because if we do that, then we have a better opportunity to market it properly to the right children, to the right young people. so that they know what to expect. And if it is a conference, we can reach out to people and say like, hey, we're having this thing. Can you come and speak to our children about this topic, whether it be mental health or finances, starting a business? And I think that would be an opportunity to make it more juicy, for lack of a better term. One thing that I think would have actually like kept the momentum going, honestly, from what I know from my past experiences with stuff like that, is like if we had like a DJ, and I think I brought this up in the planning meeting, but again, I was coming from a more observing standpoint, just so that we keep a vibe and it's not just like this kind of, I don't want to say dead silence of people talking, but it just like it brings a more like happiness and fun, like we're doing this, like we see you, we're here for you. So I think those were my biggest takeaways as far as that. I love that there were a variety of different tables. I got a lot of free stuff. I like that, even though I wasn't a youth. But I think starting from there, and also making, if we have more clarity on what the strategy of it would be, then we can also change the design of the flyer as a, as a designer, humble drag, so that it can appeal to more young children, young youths, I don't know what word to use, so that more people can come and they know what to expect. And then we can incentivize them in a way where it's like, yeah, you can find a job, you can hear these people talking, but there's an opportunity to win something. So yeah, that was my little spiel.
Thank you so much, Krista. Ornella, I saw your hand.
Yes. Eric, I want to double down on something you mentioned, and I think Carl also touched on this a little bit about outreaches specifically to school and their contacts. I think what we're doing beautiful right now is we're reflecting and getting ahead of like the hiccups. So I think it's very promising to see an even stronger youth conference next year. I think in the vein of planning ahead, I think there's a window of time where we need to like figure out who we're reaching out to and getting those contact informations correct. Because I know Eric and I spent quite a time calling different schools, like a long list of schools, and we kind of ran into the same hiccup where we got on the phone and this person no longer works here. This person didn't even receive the flyers, and it was like at that point, I think it was the week before. Right, Eric?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's on us, and I take responsibility that like those
yeah,
calls, that I did not make those calls till a week prior and a week and a half, and in retrospect, that was 6 weeks too late.
yes,
Those weeks
agreed.
needed, those board members needed to be making those calls 6 weeks ahead of time, 7 weeks for that initial, just to make sure the connect is still up to date. And these lists have been built over time, and there's always turnover at school, so you have to work
Yeah,
to keep your lists up to date. And yeah, had we made those phone calls that we did 7 weeks prior, it would have given like the full week for some of the people to get back to me. And then they're like, hey, I'm not that person anymore. This is the person. And so that's another week to get in touch with them and then make sure they have the flyers. And so if we're doing that week, 7 weeks, if we're doing that work 7 weeks ahead of time, then, we know we have the right people at least 5 weeks ahead of time. And then the week before we can be like, hey, reminder, because we talked much earlier this month, and just double checking in, you have this group. So I think that
yep.
our timeline as board members and what we contribute and bring could have happened much earlier and would be much more successful.
Yeah, and that's actually, you just went to the second piece I was gonna do. To create a run of show that we have time now to plan it out well in advance. Where we know that, hey, a month out, here's what we need to do. 2 months out, we need to do XYZ. 3 months out, we're finalizing the purpose of this meeting and getting the flyer ready, right? We're confirming lists at this by this date. And I think we have the opportunity now to get a very clear timeline around what needs to happen in regards to like run a show and like logistics.
Okay. Thank you, Ornella. I think Sarah, I saw you next, and then Carissa again. I think Carissa, did you? No. Chris's hand is just still up. So sorry, just Sarah. Go ahead, Sarah.
I've moved. But I think Carissa like brought up a couple of really good points. I mean, everyone's bringing up good points. Obviously, our perspective in the office is like a little bit different on this because we do a lot of the legwork. And I definitely like echo the need for updated lists and apologize to the extent that we contributed to that. I think the discrepancy between like conference and job fair, I think is a pretty accurate one and one that's worth like exploring how to better define the event going forward. In the past, there have been more structured workshops that have made it more conferencey, but they were really unsuccessful. So I think that's part of the reason that that model was moved away from and towards more of a tabling model. And I think that the tabling model is really effective in getting kids connected. I love the idea of music. I agree. It could be a little staid would be the word I would use. Wary of calling it a job fair because the target demographic is 14 to 21, and most of the kids who show up are high school age. So they may be looking for summer stuff, and we do try and have it so it falls within the SYEP application period, which always gets extended. So yeah, I just wanted to put those things out about like the conference language, the jobs question. I think it's more accurately like connecting young people to programs, maybe internships, but we actually specifically put jobs kind of low on the list because we don't necessarily want kids to show up and be like, let me get a job, and have actually very few providers who are looking for that. That's it.
So based off of that, right, I guess this would be there would need some more thought that needs to go into it as far as if there needs to be like a name change or keeping it as it is and getting like one or two people to come and speak so that it fills that, for lack of a better term, gap of the conference aspect of somebody speaking.
I hear you, Carissa. I think I wanted to also throw a couple other things out there. That I love, Carissa, you do design. So it sounded like, humble brag, you were interested in helping maybe with design. Humble volunteer you. But that made me think of signage, and that's something I stopped by the board office yesterday and I chatted with Patricia and Sarah, and one of the things we talked about is like that in years past, the signs that have been, whatever our design is, the design that we created and had been printed in years past, the signs were picked up by board members and put up all around the district. And this year, it just really didn't happen. So that's another thing. We had signage, and I think this was new this year as compared to other years, and we're talking 17 years. But there just wasn't a lot of volunteers who are coming in, and the district was not peppered with signs. There was just signs still at the board office. So we do need, to me, it begs the question too of thinking about, there's many ways that we want to recruit young people to come and make the community aware. So, physical signs up is definitely one of them, and I do think it matters. I happen to be, this is anecdotal, but I happen to be outside Fisherman's Cove, considering going in and getting some.
I was just gonna say that. I just saw them yesterday. They still have the poster in the window. I wanted to go in and be like, hey, you can take this down. And I was like, you know what? Not my circus, not my monkeys.
I told Sarah this. Sarah's the one who put that one up. But I was outside of it 3 weeks ago, and I was like, oh man, our sign's still there. Oh man, I should get some jerk chicken. And then this person was walking by with her husband, and she was like, "Oh, look, there's a youth conference. Look at and the husband was like, "Oh, it's over," and then they like just kept going. But I mean, in the second that I happened to be there, I looked at it, thought about chicken, and somebody talked about our sign. So it works. You know, Newkirk Plaza, there's a ton of people going through, and the businesses are willing to have the signs there. And so there just needs to be a better effort by the board and larger than this committee to get those signs out there and make it known that this is happening. So that's something that needs to happen as well. That goes on, I think, Ornella, what did you call it? I loved it. This is our show run list of things to do. What did you say?
Yeah, sorry, that's the leader in me. Run a show, critical path, all the logistic stuff.
Yes,
It's just basically all the details planned out with timestamps way in advance.
yeah. So I mean, this is so that's something that needs to happen with a timeline. I mean, those posters, as soon as they're done in the office and the office gets them, and they're doing the heavy lift of getting those things printed and translated, and then these are I just think that there's a degree of responsibility that the board has to take for doing these other elements that it just kind of I didn't feel like we did our best this year. And so the weather was nice, and it was so nice that even as I was riding my bike over it had been terrible for like 6 weeks, and that day was like this glorious day. It was the first day I took my bike out, and I was riding over there, and I swear I could have like rode off to the beach, just like kept going and missed the youth con. It was that kind of day, that kind of vibes. I think, those are things you can never account for, but we can account for, the taking on the updating our list, making sure we're good, making sure we get our signs out, those things that we have control of. And also the other thing I was going to put out, so I had, the signage was on my list, the building, the connections or checking connections, making sure we have the right connects at the schools. But also, what was the other thing? There was one more thing.
As you think about it, Eric. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I had a conversation with Donovan. There's a guy who's the education liaison for the borough president's office, and he was there. This man is very enthusiastic and brings a lot of energy. And he was like, look, reach out to me. I will send this to all the principals in the district, but also in the wider, if it's something in wider Brooklyn. He has all those people. He has the superintendent's office. He's like, I will help you. And it made me think like there's other avenues that we can use. So once we have our materials ready to go and we're ready to blast, we should tap those kind of resources as well and say, what can you do? And he was interested in being a collaborator. Who knows? I was like, are you going to be in this position for a while? He's like, I think so. So we'll take advantage of that. And somebody like him, he had some ideas. So as we're putting our timeline together in the fall, we'll reach out to him, and if there's other people on our list that we think would be good at that higher level of distribution, right? We got our signage on the ground. We're reaching out to our own schools, and then this higher level distribution. So those were my things. Sasha, I see you, and Nina back on again. So go ahead, Sasha.
So I do like some of the ideas regarding the flyer. I think if there's a way to update the flyer a little bit or make it a little bit different or maybe change the color scheme a bit, that would be great. I don't know if it makes sense to use any of the like photos of the actual people. Maybe that would be also cool, you know? Um, and I do agree with the word conference, but I also understand the word of the job fair situation. It's like if there's a way to find some kind of something in the middle, that would be cool. Yeah, because I could see how kids could be like conference, what does that mean? You know? Sounds a little too official. And then I mentioned this to Sean when we were at the event. I was asking her if there's a possibility to reach out to somebody at Brooklyn College because the conference does include some college age kids to see if I don't know, if there are any professors that can send somebody, send a bunch of students for, class credit, quote unquote, some kind of assignment follow-up or something like that to see, if we can gently force some more participation. And she was, yeah, she was open to that. And then to see if there's any, high school teachers that would be willing kind of to do that sort of as well, for class credit, for, I don't know, homework pass or something, some kind of incentive for something, especially when there's a nice weather and, people do want to hang out with their friends. And then another suggestion, I don't know how realistic that is, for flyer distribution, right? What if what if we can create, like, we had a Google sheet for volunteering, which I think for the calls that we had to do, which was great because, yes, I could see how it would be great if it was done earlier. But it was great in terms of like it was organized and like people were split up, and then I knew who I can call or like, what do I need to do? So I was just doing it. I mean, I didn't really hear from anyone, but I left multiple voicemails and things like that. But maybe we can do something similar for spreading flyers. Like we can create a sheet and be like, Curtelio Road, one volunteer. So like I'll walk from Flatbush and Curtelio to like Coney Island and Curtelio and like hit up all the businesses and whatever spots to hang up the flyers. And someone can do that for Newkirk, and someone can do that for, I don't know, like we can like make a grid or something, like split up the blocks. Something that, is more specific where you're like, okay, I have a task and this is my area and this is what I committed to. And everyone knows on the board that this is the area I committed to. So I have to go and I have to make sure that I did it, put my name on it and this and that. And then another suggestion, I don't know how realistic that would be in terms of like reaching out schools and stuff. I know it would be more time consuming, but does it make sense to maybe like also have like, you know, each person volunteer and maybe visit one of the schools throughout like, a month period, like way before the event, and physically hand the flyers? Because I know like, mailing is useful, but I feel like some things come and they could sit in someone's office and they can open it 2, 3 months later and then be like, oh wow, there was this event that I never told anyone about. But like if you come in person and you talk to, I don't know, guidance counselor, and I used to go tomorrow. I can try to, I can be like, visiting my old school type of thing. Like, see if, you could talk to somebody if you have a friend who works at a school and like physically pass someone something out of school and like encourage them to share. I think that would be maybe more encouraging to other people to kind of spread the word as well with their student. So that's just some of the ideas. That's it. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks so much, Sasha. That's awesome. Let me
And
see.
Sasha, I love the idea of making everything live in one place, for one, just for clarity, but also for accountability. And I honestly think that's an easy fix, that we can just literally add it all to the same document around like what are all the tasks and who's volunteering for what, right?
And Nina, I think you were next. Go ahead, Nina.
Yeah. So maybe I should, I guess, take a little responsibility from, perhaps I should have been more proactive, but I know that in the past, there was some outreach asking not just those on the youth and education, et cetera, whatever your long, very long name for your committee is, but asking other people on the board if they could help with various things. And I actually bicycled around. I think it was pouring out, but I bicycled around and went to a whole bunch of libraries and gave them stacks of the smaller size. It's hard to find places that can put up the big posters. I think those are kind of limited, but those ones that were more like the 8x11-ish size were easier to get out, as well as the ones that were even a little smaller that you could give out, that people could take. Like a lot of the libraries will have their they'll have a table or a countertop with things that are going on in the community. So there could be a sign on the bulletin board when people come in, but then there could be the smaller, I guess you'd call them like hand size flyers that they could take with them. And I know that in the past I had piles of these things, and I was bringing them to work, and I was bringing Spanish. I was bringing Haitian Creole as well as English because those are the populations that I work with. So, and I also called schools several weeks in advance. And I think that there were a few times when I was told, oh, there's somebody else you need to contact, whatever. But by and large, I found the schools knew about the event. And so they were happy to hear and just kind of get an update about what was going on and when and where. And they were receptive to that. And then I guess they were followed up maybe with an email with something that could then be printed out at the school and given to kids to take home with them. So I just think that, like you pointed out, Eric, getting out there a couple of weeks earlier and getting that information out there would have really helped. As far as, using participants, pictures, that can get a little tricky. You have to get all kinds of legal clearance in advance and such. Can't just, unless they did that as part of participating. Maybe Sean can just clarify that. But I do know that we have to be careful that we do have all the right legal stuff there before we put actual participants in any pictures, because they are minors, and so we don't want to get into anything sticky there. It's that the whole thing about, is it a job fair or not? I think that there are kids and there are parents who are going to want to know what's out there in terms of jobs, if they haven't already done so, or how to go about finding work opportunities for the summer. So I don't know if it makes sense to kind of group things so that it's a little less random. So that, for instance, things about, your body, your health, are kind of in a cluster. Something, I don't know, that's the one topic that I was really struck by, because there was a lot of that this year, which I don't recall seeing as much of in the past. But I don't know, it's just a thought that whether, when we set up, rather than just having people kind of tabled all over, whether it's worth sort of clustering similar kinds of things. And I don't know, maybe if we have somebody who's artistic, but they can do some kind of, I don't know, signage or something so that people know what's in different areas.
All right. I think that's part of a logistics question and how that comes in. So yeah, but thank you, Nina, for all of that, and for riding flyers all over on your bike. Really appreciate that too.
Let's get them out a little sooner this
Yeah.
coming year, and
We will.
Good.
I think Sarah, do you want to jump in here? Raise your hand. Is that an old one?
Yeah, I wanted to. So I totally agree with Ornella about the run of show. We actually we have all of that. I'm actually looking at it now. So the Ruse conference was in March. We started planning. We did a walkthrough in late December. We were updating our website in late December. I think that what is missing from this component is the buy-in of board members. These were tasks that were handled overwhelmingly by me and Patricia and Sean. Knowing that we have board members who want to help us have the flyer prepared by January 15th. Like, there were a lot of what felt like sort of like pre-planning meetings that happened in this committee that didn't necessarily always leave with actions planned. So from an organizational standpoint, those, the conversations are happening early on, we need buy-in from board members early on. That's like, I can dedicate 5 hours to this across this period of time. I can meet this deadline for this. And in some ways, that's great. Sasha did a Russian translation, Yvette did a Creole translation, we did Spanish in our office. If we can get if we can come when this planning session starts around next year and say, like, here are the internal deadlines that we have set up in the office to make this happen by the time it needs to happen, then the to-do list can say, Carissa or Nella, Nina, Carl, right? As opposed to juggling it solely in the office. And that'll allow, I think, a lot more. So getting that like affirmative buy-in from board members, not just like we're supportive, but like, here's what we're going to do early on in the process. That's something we really need to make it go.
I think this is something we touched on, Sarah, like, less a planning meeting and more like action meeting. Like, all right, we need to, what are the actions? When we leave this meeting today, what are the board, our January youth, committee meeting? These are the tasks we need done. Who's doing those? How are we executing them? That it starts to take on, an action committee, and we kind of are touching base as we move forward. I think that's great. Actually, Sarah, we've never really done it that way before. I had you guys come in and say, this is our internal, like, here's what we're doing. This is when it's going out. That kind of happens behind the scenes. I don't know. So I think we can be much more intentional about that next year. And it sounds to me like we have buy-in already. So we'll carry that forward. Carissa, you have a hand up and a cat up. I saw a cat as well.
Yeah, he wanted to be in the camera because he kept annoying me. Whoa, hold on. What I was gonna say, I'm a big strategy girl. I'm a creative consultant and a brand strategist, so everything needs to come from this realm of understanding the target audience, which is obviously the youths, but I'm hearing that it's specifically the children who are of like college or like summer youth working age. So once we have an understanding of what their actual needs and desires are, we can better make decisions around how we go about it and how it looks and what we offer. And from that standpoint, then we could understand, like, okay, well, this will be the best time to do this. And I say all of that to just go back to my original point that it needs to come from the strategic place so that every move that we do is intentional. So that, just in general, like, if we know that these children in this neighborhood, like a lot of them chills around Flatbush Junction. Then when it comes to putting out the flyer, we're putting flyers in the food establishments in the little area. Can't remember what they call it now, but in Hello Place, where is that the name of the street? Yeah, where they turn it into like this pedestrian, place of gathering or whatever the case may be, and that way we know what the spiel would be when we go to these schools to drop off these flyers and to talk to the administration to let them know, like, hey, these kids that you have, encourage them to come so that they can have, or they could, get XYZ. So yeah.
That sounds good. And I feel like we can coalesce around a meeting earlier in October, that is the actual brainstorming, thinking about bringing these questions back after the summer. And then we can lead into that timeline that's already established been by the office, and make sure we're moving forward with those earlier strategies and then moving through their timeline. I think Carl and Sasha, do you have your hand up again? Okay, cool. So Carl and
Yeah, just a suggestion. I don't know if it's realistic, but what if we make a double-sided flyer, and in the back we could list some of the organizations that could be present for this year? Because I know every year the list changes, but if we can give like a little preview of who's going to be there, if I'm as a parent seeing this flyer and I could see some of the organizations on the back, and I know it might match my child's interest, or I know someone like my friend's kids, maybe they would be interested in this. I could be like, more inclined to kind of, invite people, not just invite, I think it could be more effective, so that they kind of get an idea of what is going to be there, like a list of, participants. Just some, and I know it changes, and every time it's hard to, like we have to adjust and we have to get the kids in, but we also, we never know who's gonna be at the conference. So that also varies. I mean, some people are stable, some participants are stable.
One way you could get around that maybe is, and I like that idea. You could do kind of, and I'm thinking through Carissa's design, like last year's organizations included, and you could do a comprehensive list from the year before. You could be like, see some of these and more. So you could do a comprehensive list of who came this past year and just have a list, and so people could see that entire list. And so it'll be something similar. Maybe there's a way to do that. I'm going to go to Carl, and then we'll go back to Carissa. Go ahead, Carl. Were you done, Sasha? I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, sure. And so Carissa, so like a little bit of insight for you, like one of the data points for you as you're thinking about the strategy thing. So basically, we love the acronym soup. And so the Department of Youth and Community Development, DYCD, they're responsible for a program called SYEP, which is Summer Youth Employment. And so usually what's been happening for some amount of time is that the youth conference, right, has been a funnel for SYEP. And in the past, there used to be individuals from DYCDs who specifically worked with SYEP, who would come to the board and they would let us know, oh, like it looks like we think it may happen, the SYEP deadline may be this, right? What has happened over the past couple of years is, for whatever reason, we haven't had that kind of relationship with those people. So now what happens is, anecdotally, the community board finds itself looking back and going, oh, like it looks like for the past couple of years, the SYP deadline is usually sometime around like early March to the end of March, right? And then usually what happens is at some point after the community board has set that date, then it's like, hey, did you hear they're going to do this? And then usually they move the deadline. But that's some insight for you in terms of, yes, it is to provide opportunities, but one of the purposes as well is to have the occurrence of the youth conference also coincide around the deadline of SYEP. Because some of those organizations that do come, they do basically get like a backing from DYCD that they can be an SYEP site. So that's just one of the data pieces that I know you were looking for as you do that thinking. And like the co-chairs have said, we're not figuring everything out now, but there's definitely a lot of info. So I figured that'd be some very useful info for you as you think about stuff.
Ornella actually brought up a great point about the virtual flyers, the reels and stuff, and just thinking and knowing where the teens are in this day and age and everything is online. I think it would be great. I don't remember what the officer before was saying exactly, but if they have a group of youths that are in that age range, that will be willing to partner with us to execute some of the ideas, because it's one thing to see adults as a teenager, is to see adults doing something, but when you see other teenagers doing other things, that will encourage them to definitely want to do more. And to bring up the point about the consent about video, in the actual gym that we were in, there were papers that said that you're being recorded and photographed, so that I think that covers that. So that we can use the actual videos and photos that we took, because if you're in the area, you would have seen that you are being recorded. And Yeah. So, and I also recorded some videos myself. I'll be honest, I didn't review any of the videos, so I have to go back and see what I have that can be used for Instagram and whatever social medias CB14 has. And Sarah said CB has minimal social. Yes, that needs to change, especially around this time if we want to encourage more young people to come, because they live on social media all day, every day. And we have to make decisions intentionally from the mind of these children if it's them who we're targeting, for sure.
All right. We are coming up on 8:30. That's 2 hours in. And so I am trying to be mindful here. I feel like we have a lot, Ornella and I have good notes of this, so it'll be easy to bring up when we start planning again in the fall and thinking about it. Unless other people have like a burning desire to share a last thought on this, maybe we can pause our conversation.
I got one more thing, my folks.
The
I got
desire is
one more thing.
burning. Go ahead, Carl.
The desire is so fierce. No, it's not fierce. It's just as we're talking about the social media stuff, I just want to do a friendly neighborhood reminder as the chairperson here that just remember there's that bylaw thing about like just make sure that you're not whatever it is. And this is something we can talk about more too, because we won't solve all the things here, but there is that bylaw thing about like unless I as chairperson have explicitly stated for you to speak on behalf of Community Board 14, then not speaking about Community Board 14. And so I just want to share that thing there, right? Just because, yeah, like this is a conversation we haven't figured everything out about. Like, it sounds like there's going to be some ongoing conversations about basically how to share what is going on in the community and like letting people know about that. And so as we figure out what that looks like, I just want to put that out there, right? Just because I don't want people, I'm basically putting on the hat where it's like, whatever we figure out, I just don't want to be in a situation where I have to tell somebody, hey, like what you did was cool, but it seems like you're speaking on behalf of the board. And then because it's chairperson, I'm supposed to do it and I didn't give you authority. Now we have to have that conversation. So I'm just putting that out there, right? And that we won't figure everything out here, but there's a lot of cool ideas that people have been talking about. So that's it.
Thank you, Chairperson Cesar, Carl Henry. All right. So I think, are we good? Youth conference. This is a good place to pause on this. We do have a final agenda item. If anybody has any new business, does anybody have any new business?
Nixon 5. That's it.
Oh, Nick's have business. That's for sure. I only have one additional thing to say, or to share, that there's community education committee elections. I feel like this is the place to mention that. For those who are not aware of what they are, there are community and there's also citywide election councils. They help shape. They're almost like kind of like a school board if you're not from the city. The old school boards in the city as well, but the councils are made up of parents and some appointees from the mayor's office, and actually some high school students as well. There's 2 high school students appointed to these in each of the district. Their districts, so each district has its own CEC, Community Education Council. They help shape policies, priorities. They do have specific powers and duties concerning a range of matters, including working directly with superintendents, reviewing educational programs, approving zoning school lines, making recommendations to improve services. So that voting period is open now through May 13th. It's a 2-week voting period. You can go on the New York City DOE website and look at the candidates. If you look up the CEC, you can see the candidates. Our district includes school districts 17, 20, 21, and 22. So it's only parents or guardians, people who have children in the schools, can vote for those. So if you have a child in any of those schools or in any New York City public school, you can vote. And you have to do it through your New York City Schools account that every parent has and their kid has. So you go on and that's your ballot. So I do have a link if you wanted to learn more about it and find the candidates and such. I'm going to drop it in the chat right now. You can check that out. So that I encourage you to vote if you can or if you want to and share it. That's my only new business announcement. And if does anyone else have any other business? All right, I guess we can call that the business. I think this officially concludes our meeting. Thanks everybody for coming, and thank the guest speakers for being there, and thanks Sarah for hosting, and thank everybody for volunteering and being a part of the discussion. Appreciate your time. Ornella, any shout outs from you? All right.
No,
Good night.
good night, everyone.
Good night. Have a great night, everybody.